time is 43 months. Has not healed or diminished this pain. I think about those last seconds when you was the last thing my daughter.
You didn't win. Shaniya won. Shaniya's at peace, and you're going to hell. Those weren't just words from a judge. They were a gut-wrenching echo of justice, aimed at a mother whose betrayal went beyond human comprehension.
I can't give you justice. This jury has given you what we as humans, the best we as humans can do to give you justice. Justice would be if I could reverse all of this, and I can't.
November 10th, 2009. Fayetteville, North Carolina. The town woke to what seemed like just another ordinary day. But for 5-year-old Shaniya Davis, it would be the last time anyone would see her alive. That morning, a missing child report was filed. Shaniya had vanished without a trace from the mobile home where she lived with her mother. At first, the public was hopeful, hoping this would be just another case of a child who wandered off. But what unfolded in the days that followed would shock even the most hardened investigators. The story captured headlines across the nation. America watched, waited, and prayed as investigators searched desperately for any sign of the missing little girl. But soon, the truth began to surface, and it was more horrifying than anyone could have imagined. Her name was Shaniya Davis. She was only 5 years old, innocent, trusting, and full of life. She loved to play dress-up. She wanted to be a princess. She still believed the world was safe. She never even had the chance to learn otherwise, because someone she trusted most, her own mother, sold her. Not just sold her out emotionally or abandoned her in a moment of stress. No, she sold her child. Her mom sold her for just $200. $200. That's what her daughter's life was worth, to feed a drug addiction. $200. The price Antoinette Davis accepted to hand her little girl over to a known predator. And Shaniya didn't even live long enough to tell anyone what they did to her. Shaniya Davis entered the world as a small light, born to two people who shared a connection, but not a lasting relationship. Her mother, Antoinette Davis, and her father, Bradley Lockhart, had never married. They went their separate ways, and the relationship between them faded. But for Shaniya, her father never stepped away. From the beginning, Bradley chose to be present. He embraced fatherhood fully, pouring his heart into raising Shaniya with all the love and tenderness a child deserves. She wasn't just another responsibility, she was his world. Bradley already had older daughters from a previous relationship, and together they welcomed Shaniya into their home like a beautiful new chapter in their family's story. In that house, she was cared for, surrounded by sisters who adored her, and a father who worked hard to provide a sense of normalcy, stability, and safety. For a time, Shaniya's life was filled with laughter and innocence, daddy-daughter moments, bedtime stories, morning hugs, and birthday parties. She was deeply loved, and everyone who met her could see how special she was. But life has a way of throwing cruel and unexpected turns. Bradley's longtime girlfriend, who had been a steady maternal figure in Shaniya's life, suddenly passed away. The loss left a gaping hole in the family, and Bradley, grieving and overwhelmed, began to question whether he could give Shaniya everything she needed on his own. So, with a heavy heart, and believing it might be best for his daughter to have a stronger maternal presence, he made a choice. One that, in time, he would come to see as the most devastating decision of his life. He allowed Shaniya to go live with her biological mother, Antoinette Davis. What he hoped would be a chance for Shaniya to connect with the woman who gave birth to her would become the very thing that tore her future away. He didn't know. He couldn't have known. that behind Antoinette's doors was a world completely different from the safe home Shaniya had known. He had no idea that sending her there would be the beginning of an irreversible nightmare. A fragile start, cracked by loss, and shattered by a single decision made in good faith, one that would soon lead to the unthinkable. When Shaniya Davis was placed in her mother's care, she entered a world far different from what she had known. A world that looked nothing like the home her father had built for her. Antoinette Davis lived in a place called Sleepy Hollow Mobile Home Park, tucked away in a forgotten corner of Fayetteville, North Carolina. The name itself, Sleepy Hollow, might once have sounded quiet, even peaceful. But after what happened there, it would forever carry the weight of dread. Antoinette's life was defined by chaos. She had no job, no steady income, and no real structure. Her days were a blur of survival, addiction, and questionable choices. The woman who now had full custody of 5-year-old Shaniya was, by all accounts, deeply immersed in the grip of drug dependency. Despite her unstable circumstances, Antoinette managed to regain custody of her daughter. To this day, people ask how that was even possible. How did a woman with no income, no stability, and an addiction history convince a court or social system that she could care for a child? From the outside, the Sleepy Hollow trailer park appeared quiet, but it had an undercurrent that many neighbors later described as unsafe, unnerving even. Some would say you could feel it, a kind of tension that hung in the air. Neighbors remembered seeing Shaniya at times, but not often. And when they did, something always felt off. She didn't have the same bright energy people remembered from before. And as days passed, her presence there became more concerning than comforting. Shaniya's half-brother, Shaniya Davis, was among the few who sensed the danger firsthand. He later admitted that something in that house didn't feel right. He couldn't explain it, but the feeling never left him. You could feel the danger in that place, Chavez would say. And sadly, he was right. What Shaniya had walked into was more than just poverty. It was more than neglect. It was an environment where desperation bred darkness, and where innocence had no shield. This wasn't just a poor neighborhood. It was a trap. A place where children went unseen, and where mothers like Antoinette, lost in their own addictions, allowed evil to creep in unchecked. Sleepy Hollow was more than a trailer park. For Shaniya, it was a final stop. A place where the doors should have never opened. A place where the line between love and betrayal was not only crossed, it was sold. November 10th, 2009. Fayetteville, North Carolina. The sun hadn't yet risen when something deeply disturbing unfolded at the Sleepy Hollow trailer park. What should have been an ordinary, quiet Tuesday morning would soon become a date seared into the collective memory of a grieving community, and later, an entire nation. It was just past 5:30 a.m. when a neighbor, Carl Spader, noticed something strange. Through the dim light of dawn, he saw a man emerging from the trailer where little Shaniya Davis had been staying. The man was holding a small child, wrapped tightly in a blanket, cradled in his arms like precious cargo. But it wasn't a scene of care or comfort. Something felt wrong. The child, lifeless in posture, didn't appear to be awake. She wasn't moving. She wasn't talking. She was bundled up like a secret that wasn't meant to be seen. Carl's eyes followed the man, trying to make sense of what he was witnessing in the half-dark. That man would later be identified as Mario Andretti McNeil, known on the streets as Mono. His connection to Antoinette Davis was murky, part friend, part associate, part enabler. But on this day, he played a much darker role. At 6:52 a.m., more than an hour after McNeil was seen leaving the trailer with Shaniya, Antoinette Davis finally made a call to report her daughter missing. The delay was almost as damning as the crime itself. In her call to 911, Antoinette claimed that Shaniya had simply wandered off, disappeared on her own, walked out the door without a trace. She spoke of confusion, panic, helplessness. But even in her voice, something didn't sit right. Police arrived quickly. They searched the trailer, the surrounding woods, nearby homes, anywhere a child could hide or be hidden. But deep down, detectives already suspected the worst. A 5-year-old child does not vanish silently into the cold morning air. And most importantly, the timeline was off. The last confirmed sighting of Shaniya wasn't at 6:52 a.m. It was nearly an hour and a half earlier, in the arms of a man walking away from the trailer. That man, Mario McNeil, was already on his way, with Shaniya, toward something unthinkable. Antoinette's lie would be exposed within hours. What she told police was far from the truth, because the truth was horrifying. The reality was that Shaniya had not wandered off. She had been handed over, given away, sold. The morning of November 10th unfolded with chilling clarity, captured by the unblinking eyes of security cameras. At precisely 6:11 a.m., Mario Andretti McNeil, known as Mono, checked into the Comfort Suites hotel. But he was not alone. In his arms, he carried Shaniya Davis, the 5-year-old girl whose fate was about to shatter a family and haunt a community forever. The surveillance footage tells a haunting story. The camera recorded Mono carrying Shaniya, her body limp and swathed in a blanket, as he entered the dimly lit hallway leading to room 132. Every step, every movement frozen in time, became a grim testament to the horror unfolding behind closed doors. Hotel staff would soon grow uneasy. The sight of a man with a small child wrapped so tightly, motionless, was unsettling. As the minutes passed, their unease turned to concern. Then, at 7:30 a.m., Mono emerged from room 132, but this time he was alone. Shaniya was nowhere in sight. The room he left behind was permeated by a foul, unbearable stench. Investigators who later inspected the room found the source: feces. The smell was so strong it filled the entire space. A blanket, discarded and forgotten, bore fresh fecal stains, adding a grotesque layer to the tragedy. Yet, despite the evidence, Mono was gone. Like a shadow slipping away at dawn, he vanished, leaving behind only the echoes of a crime that would shock a nation. Narrator, voiceover. As the investigation plunged deeper into the dark mystery, law enforcement officers immediately turned their focus to the two most critical figures: Antoinette Davis, Shaniya's mother, and Mario Andretti McNeil, known as Mono. In the initial round of questioning, Antoinette maintained a facade of ignorance. She acted confused, feigning innocence as if unaware of the gravity of the situation. Her words were carefully chosen, meant to mislead and deflect suspicion. Mono, on the other hand, claimed their relationship was purely platonic. He insisted that he and Antoinette were just friends, a casual acquaintance, nothing more. His calm demeanor suggested cooperation, but the truth lay far beneath the surface. But the pressure mounted relentlessly. With every moment that passed, the detectives closed in, unraveling the tangled web of deceit. Finally, Antoinette broke down. The dam of lies she had built began to crumble under the weight of truth. She confessed, shocking the room with her admission, that she had given Shaniya to Mono, not out of kindness or trust, but to settle a drug debt that had ensnared her in its grip, a debt of only $200. She claimed she believed Mono was taking Shaniya to a family member, a relative who would care for the child. Yet this was yet another deception. The reality was far more sinister. The words she spoke masked a darker truth that would soon come to light, one that exposed the betrayal and horror that had claimed Shaniya's young life. Mario Andretti McNeil, known as Mono, was now squarely in the spotlight. Under intense police scrutiny, he maintained a steady denial that he had caused any harm to little Shaniya. Mano insisted he had not been the one to hurt her. Instead, he claimed he had handed Shaniya over to someone else, passing the child along to an unknown individual. But this story quickly began to unravel. Investigators were skeptical. His account shifted repeatedly, with inconsistencies piling up like smoke around a fire. Each version of events conflicted with the last, revealing a tangled web of lies designed to mislead and confuse. The breaking point came when Mano finally confessed to a critical fact. He admitted taking Shaniya to the Comfort Suites hotel, but he insisted that when he left, Shaniya was still alive. His words seemed like a desperate attempt to hold on to some shred of innocence, to distance himself from the tragic fate of the child. Yet the evidence told a different story, one that would soon surface in cold, undeniable clarity. Police dug into Mano's phone records, meticulously piecing together every call and message he had sent that day. GPS data placed him precisely at the hotel at the time Shaniya disappeared. Most damning of all was the DNA evidence. It would ultimately dismantle Mano's version of events, revealing the harsh truth behind Shaniya's disappearance. The weight of this forensic proof was undeniable. Mano's deceit was exposed, and the full horror of what had happened to Shaniya was about to be revealed. On the morning of November 16th, 2009, 6 days after Shaniya Davis was reported missing, the devastating search came to a tragic end. Shaniya's lifeless body was discovered in a desolate field near Walker Road in Lee County, North Carolina. The location was grim and heart-wrenching. Her small body had been discarded alongside a deer carcass, as if she were nothing more than refuse to be tossed aside and forgotten. The coldness of that image struck everyone involved to their core. The autopsy painted an even darker picture. Shaniya had been brutally violated, raped, and then suffocated, her young life cruelly and violently extinguished. The brutality of her final moments was unimaginable. At the scene, the emotional toll on law enforcement was palpable. One officer, overcome by grief and heartbreak, broke down in uncontrollable tears, unable to hold back the sorrow. Even the most hardened detectives, veterans of countless cases, were shaken to their very core by the sheer horror and innocence lost in this tragedy. The discovery of Shaniya's body transformed the case from a desperate search into a chilling murder investigation, one that would expose unimaginable betrayal, deceit, and the darkest depths of human cruelty. In 2013, after years of anguish, investigation, and heartbreak, Mario Andretti McNeil finally faced justice. He stood trial, charged with the horrific crimes of murder, rape, and kidnapping in connection with the brutal death of 5-year-old Shaniya Davis. The courtroom was heavy with emotion. The community, the family, and the entire nation watched closely, waiting for justice to be served. Throughout the trial, McNeil displayed a chilling lack of remorse. Rather than show any sorrow or regret, he mocked Shaniya's father, Bradley Lockhart, laughing openly in court, displaying a callousness that shocked everyone present. The prosecution laid out a damning case, piece by piece exposing McNeil's deceit, cruelty, and involvement in the girl's tragic death. Witness after witness testified, and overwhelming evidence left little room for doubt. The jury ultimately found Mario McNeil guilty on all charges. The verdict was unanimous. He was to be sentenced to death for his unforgivable crimes. As the Judge Ammons, delivered the sentence, he fixed McNeil with a cold, piercing gaze. His words were powerful and filled with finality, echoing throughout the courtroom. You didn't win. Shaniya won. Shaniya's at peace, and you're going to hell. In that moment, the weight of grief crashed down on Bradley Lockhart. Overcome by sorrow and regret, he broke down in tears. The pain of losing his daughter was unbearable, but even deeper was the guilt he carried, knowing that he had made the painful decision to send Shaniya to live with her mother. That decision would haunt him for the rest of his life. He would never forgive himself for letting his precious daughter go to a place where she was so tragically betrayed and lost. Though justice was served in court, the scars left by this unimaginable loss would never fully heal for those who loved Shaniya Davis. Following the harrowing trial of Mario McNeil, attention turned to Antoinette Davis, Shaniya's mother. Charged with serious crimes related to the tragic fate of her daughter, Antoinette faced the full weight of the law. Rather than go through a prolonged trial, Antoinette chose to enter an Alulford plea. This legal maneuver is unusual. It allows a defendant to maintain their claim of innocence while simultaneously acknowledging that prosecutors possess enough evidence to likely secure a conviction. Essentially, it's a way to accept punishment without admitting guilt. In Antoinette's case, the plea reflected the complex and heartbreaking nature of this tragedy. Despite her continued claims of innocence, the overwhelming evidence against her left little room for doubt. Ultimately, the court sentenced Antoinette Davis to 17 years and 9 months behind bars. The sentence stood as a grim reminder of the consequences of her actions and omissions in Shaniya's life and death. Her time in prison would be a long and sobering chapter, one marked by reflection, regret, and the cold reality of accountability for the pain inflicted on an innocent child and those who loved her. The devastation did not end with Shaniya's death. The ripple effects of this tragedy continued to haunt the Davis family in heartbreaking ways. Shaniya's half-brother, Chavez, who had once sensed the danger lurking in their lives, met a tragic end of his own. He was shot and killed. This added another painful chapter to the already shattered Davis family story, deepening the sorrow that had enveloped them. Meanwhile, Bradley Lockhart, Shaniya's father, devoted himself to a new mission born from his profound grief. He dedicated years of his life to advocacy, tirelessly pushing for stronger child protection laws. His efforts were a way to honor Shaniya's memory and to ensure that no other child would suffer as she did. Through this work, Bradley sought to transform tragedy into a catalyst for change, trying to build a safer future for vulnerable children everywhere. Despite the passage of time, Shaniya's story stands as one of the most heartbreaking and disturbing betrayals ever recorded in true crime history. The cruelty she endured, especially at the hands of those who should have protected her, remains a dark stain, an agonizing reminder of the depths of human failure and the urgent need for justice and protection. Shaniya Davis was just 5 years old, full of life, laughter, singing, and dancing. A little girl who should have been cherished and protected. Instead, her life was stolen for a mere $200 and a drug debt. But even in death, her memory carries a powerful message. It stands as a haunting symbol of what can happen when the people and systems meant to safeguard children fail them completely. Let Shaniya's story serve as a solemn reminder. Not every parent deserves the name. Some hide behind that title while hiding a darkness that no child should ever face. They are monsters in disguise. As we honor her memory, let us commit to never forgetting her pain and never letting such tragedies fade into silence. Shaniya, you did not deserve any of this. Rest in peace, little one. If Shaniya's story touched you, please subscribe to stay connected to more important stories like this. Don't forget to like, comment, and share, because every voice helps keep these memories alive and raises awareness for those who need it most.